Oh, Reagan's cracking down on those welfare queens.
I remember it, and I was a child at the time.
Yeah. And George W. Bush, he's for the family. He's for the marriage of one man and one woman. And
so they get distracted by these ideas, and we have even talked to people who said, "Oh, well, I think I'm going to vote for McCain," and really, it's just because they're racist. Had it been Hillary Clinton that was nominated, they wouldn't be saying that. Now, I remind people like that once they get into the voting booth and the curtain is pulled, nobody knows which lever they pull, so hopefully they'll drop their bigotry at that moment just for one split second and pull the Democratic lever and get us out of this mess. Because McCain, I believe, even has a plan to tax, if I understand it correctly, tax healthcare benefits provided by employers, which would reduce the number of employers providing healthcare to their employees and increase the number of working and middle-class people who are uninsured or self-paying. And he has no plan to do anything about the pre-existing condition exclusions, the underwriting, all of that.
But if you have 7 houses, certainly that's not an issue with you. That's just a minor bill in healthcare.
So as far as the maverick status for McCain, we don't buy it. We hope that he does not have an opportunity to prove us wrong by getting elected. However, in the worst case scenario, if he did get elected, we hope he does prove us wrong and show that maverick streak and buck the trends of the corporatism and make changes. I don't think it's going to happen if he's elected. And certainly Ms. Palin is not qualified to be vice president or, God forbid, president someday.
One thing I wanted to say was, some listening to this video statement that we're making would say, why do they hate America? That's a refrain. No matter what argument you make, the right-wing Republicans use the same refrain. Why do they hate America? No, we hate bigotry. And I've heard people say, well, other countries have bigotry and have right-wing regimes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Certainly we learned about the French with all the burnings of the tires in Paris back in the year 2005. These Arabs are citizens of France and have been there for generations and can't get any jobs. Germany is at least repentant for what it did in the Second World War. I was in Berlin in 1999 and saw a big sign at the largest subway station in Berlin saying, we can never forget the unspeakable crimes we committed at, and then it listed about 15 concentration camps. And of course in other countries bigotry has arisen again. In Poland, where there was always anti-Semitism, and now there's virulent homophobia. In Romania, there's virulent homophobia, where there had been anti-Semitism before the Second World War. So countries, and of course with Great Britain and the Irish. So certainly there are all around the world. Canada. We went to Canada thinking it was a liberal nirvana. It is most certainly not. It is in a big city like Vancouver, but you get out 20, 25 miles and you'll find the anti-Chinese feeling and anti-Native American feeling. So countries everywhere. It's a failure of human beings, not of Americans. But as American citizens, we don't feel it's pro-American by going along with bigotry and trying to cover up bigotry. We don't believe so at all. We think it's best to make this nation live up to its ideals, which it has. It's done many great things, this nation, and we don't want to see it in the hands of bigots, such as the right-wing Republicans.
And of course, speaking out and exercising the freedom of speech as we're, my voice cracked, the freedom of speech as we are doing on this webcast, which probably won't be viewed by very many people, but hundreds of thousands of Americans, hopefully millions of Americans, understand the freedom of speech guaranteed to them in the First Amendment, the right to peaceably assemble and protest the government for redress of grievances, which is what people did outside the Republican National Convention. We weren't there, but what we saw on YouTube was scary. People being rounded up by the hundreds and reporters dragged away. Those people were not un-American. Those people were true patriots. They were exercising their freedom to protest. it's those corporate leaders who ordered, and Republican leaders in many cases, who ordered these mass arrests, who are unpatriotic and who believe in the police state and the corporate state. So,
well, it's interesting how the right-wing Republicans restrict the First Amendment rights of those reporters to cover those events, just as they did in 2004 in New York, which are still in court. And yet, when the right-wing talk show hosts get on the air and they can say anything on there, the right-wing Republicans always say, oh, First Amendment, their right to say it. And I'll give you just two examples. One right-wing announcer in Pittsburgh on radio station WEAE 1250 AM said, I don't want to see Senator Edward Kennedy die from his brain cancer. He said, I want Senator Kennedy to live so I can see him be assassinated. And another example was in the 1990s, after the gay rights parade there, the announcer Bob Grant, and I believe the station was WABC. Imagine, the biggest AM station in New York, and he got on there and said, well, they should have had, we're talking about the gay marchers, they should have had phalanxes of police armed with machine guns to mow those people down.
So this is the extremist speech that is allowed from the right wing on AM, especially AM talk shows.
And on FM also.
Yeah. And the left doesn't talk like that. The moderate center doesn't talk like that. We consider ourselves moderates, or maybe I might be slightly left of center, but we don't use the freedom of speech to denigrate others. I think the people in the center, the true moral majority in this country, whether they be gay or straight, black or white, rich or poor, we use our freedom of speech simply to speak up about injustices, not to target groups the way Rush Limbaugh and the other haters use their right-wing radio shows to do. So anyway, I think it's about time we end this trial web cast, and if we don't do another before the election, we hope that you will vote.
McCain is not a maverick. He's not a moderate. He says he wants to put people like Scalia, more Scalias, on the U.S. Supreme Court. That's the kind of justice he'll nominate. And Scalia has said in a 1996 decision, he has compared gay people directly to murderers. He said there's a reason that society has an animus toward certain people. Like society has animus toward murderers, society has animus toward homosexuals. Think about that.
Which is certainly an extremist point of view. And
that's what McCain wants on the court.
One wonders if there are more right-wing people on the Supreme Court, if the African-American community, or really any minority community, will be safe. I mean, in theory, they could reverse anything, change anything they want, invalidate the Bill of Rights.
Well, they're already tampering with Brown versus Board of Education, which ended segregation in 1954.
Yeah. So, hopefully, we'll take our country back at the next election. Hopefully the Democratic Party will do it, and hopefully they will be less corporate and more common people oriented. Until then, thank you for listening.